So recording has begun.
Great. And we'd, in addition to the welcome, we'd also like to ask everybody to, if you have any questions, maybe write them in the chat or put them in the Q&A, and we will get to them as time permits at the end.
Yeah. And Pooja, you want to share your disclaimer slide?
Absolutely. So this is just a little thing that I just want you all to be aware, because we're not doctors. Anything we say here is for making lifestyle changes. But if you're under a physician's care and if you're on any kind of medications and you make changes, please let your doctors know, because sometimes when we make lifestyle changes, the dosage of your medication may need to be adjusted. So this is something we always let people know, because lifestyle interventions can be very powerful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to get started with just a little introduction. Why should we be concerned about the brain, and why should we be concerned about brain health? That's what we're talking about tonight, but there are many reasons. One of them is an increase in cognitive decline. And we see that in Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, also ADD and ADHD in children, but not only in children, but adults. And anxiety, depression, and PTSD as some of just the many mental health issues that we're facing right now. There's also an increase in memory lapses and difficulty focusing. And this is due mainly for information overload. We all have time pressures. Even though we know multitasking isn't good for us, we still do it. And stress about the future, worrying. And this is all at an increased cost to society. There are 6.5 million Americans right now, age 65 and over, that are suffering with Alzheimer's disease. And this number is projected to double by 2050, which is not all that far away. And there are a little over 6 million children that have been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. So the cost to society is immense, and it's only going to get higher and increase as our population ages. So research shows that our cognitive decline actually starts in our mid-20s. And scientists used to believe that we were born with a lifetime finite number of neurons, and that if we damaged any of them, we couldn't get them back. We couldn't replace them. They also thought that the brain was unalterable. So are we doomed? Well, there is good news in all of this. Research has found a couple of new discoveries. They're not totally new. I'm sure many of you have heard of them, but one is neuroplasticity, where they found that our brain has the ability to change and rewire itself to be plastic and develop new neural connections. And the other one is neurogenesis. And in this, the brain actually has the capacity to regenerate and grow new brain cells. So this is good news because it means we have the ability to improve our mental functions and develop our brain power into our 80s and 90s if we're lucky enough to live that long. So how can we tap into that ability? With brain health, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Our brain health is becoming as important as physical and emotional health, and they are all connected. So as I said tonight, we're going to be talking about that and some of the lifestyle elements that are the foundations for optimizing our brain health. And with that, I am going to turn the stage over to Robin.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to be talking about nutrients to boost your brain health. And, you know, like Marty said, it used to be we thought that you had to get all those nutrients in utero. I mean, and, you know, once you were born and you had it, and then and as you were very little, and then the brain stopped, its neuroplasticity stopped being developed, new brain cells by the time, I remember my mother saying, insisting, like, by the time you're 12, you know, and then that's it. So it's not true. But what is true is that as we age, we begin to see a difference in the way we think and how we feel. And we might start getting a little bit more forgetful. I think I showed that tonight. And our moods might become more unpredictable. But very fortunately, there are a lot of lifestyle choices that we can make to help our brains stay healthy as we age. And one of the things we can do is to make sure we're eating the right nutrients that support both the structure of the brain as it's building new cells and the function with neurotransmitters and with a lot of different things. I'm Robin Thomas, and I focused my entire career on wellness. I worked for 25 years in medical research on a variety of chronic health issues, including autoimmune disease and inflammation. And I started my own wellness business with USANA Health Sciences in 2004. So my special interest in brain health is due to the fact that my husband's parents both had early dementia, and I really attribute that to some of their lifestyle choices. And our son acquired brain injury from type 1 diabetes as an infant. So we have spent his whole life helping build that brain and helping reduce that. And I have a whole herd of deer crossing in front of me. But in my presentation today, I'll be introducing specific nutrients that are a must-have for our brains to function properly, as well as some other nutrients that may optimize function and enhance our mood. Now, when you think of healthy nutrition, you don't always think of fats, or at least we used to never think of fats. I remember the years of you know, low fat is much better, but healthy fats they're critical for your brain health. And it's basic, your brain structure is dependent on having healthy fats. The healthiest fats include omega-3s, and it's found in oily fish, nuts, and seeds. There's 3 types of omega-3s. There's EPA, DHA, and ALA are the most common types. The first 2, EPA and DHA, come from animal foods, such as fish and eggs, and it's very important for both heart and brain health. And often people will use a fish oil supplement that contains EPA and DHA. ALA comes from plants. Now the body must convert the ALA into EPA and DHA, and though that does happen, it's not very easy, and the body only converts a small amount. So you have to actually intake a whole lot more ALA to get those. Omega-3 fatty acids are mostly taken up in the membranes of our cells, which includes the nerve cells in our brain. And that makes the membranes more permeable and more flexible. This allows better communication between the junctions between each nerve cell. These junctions are called synapses, and they support that cognitive health, including memory and learning. Now, in the past, I've talked about how a diet high in sugar is shown to interfere with our ability to form new memories by reducing the levels of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. I'm going to talk about this a lot. This is a protein that helps us learn and remember new information. It helps in that connection between the synapses. It's this essential, required for normal growth, development, and communication between the nerve cells. Now, research shows that a diet that's high in omega-3 fatty acids from both fish and fish oil supplements increase the levels of BDNF in the brain. So, and they've seen that it increases memory in people with mild cognitive impairment or age-related cognitive decline. Other research was published in Molecular Psychiatry. It shows that fish oil supplements help people improve their stress resilience. It reduced the body's harm from stress and gave long-term anti-inflammatory activity and protected cell components that generally shrink as we age. So parts of the brain can shrink a little bit as we age. So this helps prevent that. And it's likely due to the fact that omega-3 fatty acids help reduce inflammation throughout the body, since chronic inflammation has been linked to cognitive decline and dementia. So if you're looking for ways to keep your memory sharp and your mood stable as you age, make sure you're getting enough omega-3 fatty acids in your diet. Another main thing for your diet, and I talk about this a lot, eating the rainbow. Flavonoids and carotenoids come from a variety of colorful plant foods. All these are oxidants, not oxidants, but antioxidants that help keep your brain from oxidative stress. But they also have more particular complex actions in the body that scientists are currently researching. Some of the specific flavonoids show promise maintaining healthy brain function. Quercetin and curcumin have been shown to maintain memory and learning abilities in some studies, and then work is going on in this area. Sources with quercetin includes onions, red wine, green tea, and St. John's wort. The amount in these plants are quite variable, so a high-quality certified supplement would probably be a better choice than depending on red wine for your quercetin levels. Some powerful carotenoids, it's called lutein, and zeaxanthin, are more known for supporting eye health than the brain health. But actually, research is showing there's a tie between these nutrients and maintaining long-term normal, healthy cognitive function too. The B vitamins. I think we've known a long time that the B vitamins help brain health. But how do they do it? When we do know from research that if there's a deficiency in these vitamins, it can cause the symptoms, including memory loss. And in these cases, adding a vitamin B12 supplement helps improve memory. Well, one of the reasons it does is that these vitamins reduce the high homocysteine blood levels. So you may have been told at the doctor that your homocysteine is high. Unfortunately, that's a risk factor for developing cognitive impairment. Folate, B6, and B12 are vital nutrients for the processes that keep the homocysteine levels at a healthy level. And they did a large systemic review in March 2022, found mixed results, but quite a few individual studies in that big review showed great benefits, but only when folic acid was combined with B6 and B12. Now, nuts and fish are two of the most popular foods you think of when you want to improve your brain function. And healthy fats, as we know, plays a role in this. Many nuts, on the other hand, also are packed with full of vitamin E. And they found that vitamin E is linked to better memory performance in studies. An example is the association between low vitamin E levels and poor memory performance in older adults. Vitamin E sufficiencies were linked to poor cognition performance if you took less than 50% the recommended daily amount. And it's particularly interesting that when you combine supplementing with vitamin E and vitamin C over a long period of time, 10 years, it showed the greatest effect of improving memory and cognition for women aged 70 to 79. And this study, it was not a small study. It was following 15,000 women for 10 years. So they have some significant results on that. Now, two minerals, very common minerals we talk about a lot. They play a huge role in keeping the communications flowing in our brain. calcium ions are responsible for transporting a chemical message through the membrane from the outside of the cell to the inside in response to signals by important neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters are activated to regulate gene expression and proper brain development and neurodevelopmental disorders. That's called a calcium channel, very important. And magnesium is a key component of glutamate and GABA, which are two important neurotransmitters which impact learning and memory. Magnesium also helps maintain adequate calcium levels in the brain cells. And it helps your brain unlock all the benefits of B vitamins by helping them transform to the active forms of the B vitamins. So luckily, both of these minerals are widely available in most people's diets. Now, I have discovered more important nutrients specifically for brain health. Alpha lipoic acid, the unique aspect of it is its ability to regenerate other antioxidants back to active states. That includes vitamin C, vitamin E, and coenzyme Q10. Alpha lipoic acid also influences the production of glutathione, which supports healthy liver detoxification. And choline, I know choline is in a lot of prenatals, but they found that not only is it so important for brain development, but it acts to protect the brain from Alzheimer's disease in at least 2 ways. And one of the ways was reducing the levels of homocysteine also. And another one is it reduces the overactivation of microglia, which are cells that actually clear away debris in the brain. That sounds backwards, but if those become overactive, it actually takes away bits of the brain and gives problems with the brain. So it's good to have that in control. Zinc helps elevate levels of BDNF in the areas that control our emotions. And when zinc level is low, BDNF levels drop, and so does our mood. Low levels of zinc also lead to lower GABA levels in the brain. And I know this specifically because this happened to my son. He ended up with very low zinc levels, and these things happened. It was not fun. Nootropics, I don't know if you've heard of nootropics, but they're any substance that enhances cognition and memory and facilitates learning. My favorite combination of plant nootropics include American ginseng, bacopa, and whole coffee fruit extract. When they're taken together in one supplement, they convert choline into acetylcholine that improves learning, attention, and memory. They work as an antioxidant to protect the brain, and most of all, specifically, they stimulate your body to make that BDNF naturally, that very important protein that helps us learn and remember new information. So as you see, there's lots of nutrients that help support cognitive health as we age. And while almost all these nutrients are included in a healthy diet filled with plenty of colorful plants, lean protein, and healthy fats, the research points to the need to add to that healthy diet by supplementing with quality targeted nutrients. At the minimum, I believe we should be on a high quality vitamin, antioxidant, and mineral support, that contains the correct ratios of micronutrients, because that ratio is so very important. And we must also increase omega-3 fatty acid levels to support the structure and function of our brain. And I have the picture right there. I recommend USANA's Premium Cell Essentials and Biomega as a basic foundation for overall health. So I know I went through a lot of information in a very short time. So I'm offering a free 30-minute wellness consultation for us to find out together the best course of action for you and your own health. And I'm also offering a special 20% discount on USANA products of your choice. It's real easy to sign up to meet me on my calendar at meetrobin.me. And once you're on my calendar, I'm going to be honoring the special discount until after our scheduled meeting. Now I'd like to pass the baton on to my wonderful friend and colleague, Pooja Chillicurry.
Thank you, Robin. And I am going to just share my. Hey everyone, this is Pooja. Robin, thank you for that, just that lovely introduction into nutrients. That is my passion. I am a nutritional therapy practitioner, and that's just a fancy way of saying that I can help you identify and balance your nutritional deficiencies. But for my part of the presentation, I'm actually going to be talking about gut health, because brain health and gut health are very intimately linked. And the connection, I hope that after this presentation, you all will be able to understand the connection. So my slides won't go forward.
There you go.
There you go. So for brain health, just to be defining some terms, right? Brain health, what do we mean by brain health? And Marty, I know you introduced, why brain health is important. And when I think of brain health, I think of two main things: cognitive function and mental health. And we've been hearing a lot about mental health, especially recently. Mental health has to do with how we regulate our moods and emotions. And that in turn has to do with how we're doing with our neurotransmitters production. And of course, psychological stress. But for cognitive function, again, the structure of the brain is important. The nutrients, as Robin talked about. And with cognition, we're talking about learning, focus, memory, how we interact socially, visual and facial recognition. And all of these things start declining as early symptoms for dementia. So that's something we want to pay attention to. So when I think of the brain, I've always thought that the brain was in charge, because when you're brain dead, you're dead. But the brain has a boss, and that is your gut. What I found out that was fascinating to me is sometimes even when we are brain dead, our gut can still be functioning and moving food along. That is because your gut has a mind of its own. It's called the enteric nervous system. So, when you talk about gut feelings, that's a real thing. It has a very rich supply of neurons. Those are nerve cells. And it can function, like I said, even when a person is dead, as long as there is food and those nerve cells can sense the food, they will contract and they will make the muscles of the gut wall contract, and food can still move along. The gut talks to the brain and the brain talks to the gut. You all have experienced this at some point. Whenever you may have anxiety or stress, you may find that your stomach hurts or that you are nauseous. That is your brain talking to your gut, and then the gut is acting it out with symptoms. But the reverse is also true. Our gut talks to the brain, and much more so than the brain talks to the gut. The vagus nerve is one of the largest nerves we have, carrying messages back and forth from your brain to different organs. It carries messages from your brain to your gut, but the gut relays 400 times more messages to your brain than your brain relays to the gut. So in my book, that puts the gut in charge. Also, some of the chemicals that are responsible for, the happiness hormone, you may have heard of serotonin. Robin just talked about GABA, that's a neurotransmitter that helps to reduce anxiety. Dopamine, that works with our reward centers. So all of these neurotransmitters, the majority of them are actually not made in your brain, but in your gut. So this is very important. The health of your gut is very important. And another player that comes in when we talk about the gut is your microbiome. So I'm just going to take a quick minute to describe what that is. This is such a vast topic. I have an hour's class that I teach just on the microbiome. And it's really difficult to, do the deep dive in 10 minutes. But I hope that I could leave you with some basics today. The microbiome is all of the living organisms that live inside you and on your body. So they are on your skin, your mucous membranes, and a majority of them are inside our gut. That's bacteria, yeast, fungus, protozoa, and they are at least 100 trillion cells, and they outnumber your human cells 10 to 1. So technically we are more bacteria than we are human. And the important thing about our microbiome, we have them at birth. You know, when a baby is born, that's part of the deal when it's coming out of the birth canal and it gulps that vaginal fluid. There's microbiome in there and it sets them up. So the diversity is key for overall health. We'll talk about that. And we have anywhere between 10,000 and 35,000 species of these. And if you want to lose weight quickly, 3 to 4 pounds is just in your microbiome. So not a best way to lose weight, but that's, 4 pounds is a lot. And the brain, weighs anywhere between 3 to 5 pounds. So the microbiome is ginormous. I think of it as this one giant entity, but really it's a community. And it's as unique as your fingerprint. So no two people are going to have the same exact microbiome composition. But the beauty is that it can change throughout our lifetime. And this depends on our diet and our lifestyle. And I will discuss that in a minute. But before that, let's just talk about really quickly why it's important. So the microbiome has a really important role to play, not just in your brain health, but in your overall health. Metabolism, it regulates. So some of us have a hard time gaining weight. Some of us have a hard time losing weight. And this, again, you can trace it back to your microbiome. Certain species of bacteria that live inside our gut make it very difficult for us to lose weight. And they have been implicated in obesity. The digestive health, again, depends on your microbiome. They make nutrients. Robin talked about the B vitamins, and they're so important for brain health. And the microbiome, that's actually one of their jobs, is to help us make a sufficient production of B vitamins. They keep the lining of our gut healthy. And I will talk about that in a second when we talk about brain health. And they help us absorb nutrients. They help us detoxify when we ingest toxins with our food. Some of these species work very hard to get rid of heavy metals. Inflammation, train your immune system. And they are being studied in therapeutic interventions for things like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's. So you can imagine how important they are. So when it comes to brain health, how does the microbiome affect that? So remember I talked about the neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, GABA. The production of these is regulated by this microbiome. These bacteria and fungi and protozoa and all these things living inside us, they eat and drink. And when they eat and drink, they make byproducts. And these byproducts, these chemicals, they reach the brain either through the vagus nerve, or they could just cross over inside the lining of your gut. They just cross over into your bloodstream. And some of these act as hormones. Some of these will just send messages to the brain and ask it to do different things. One of the important things it does, apart from the production of neurotransmitters, is that protein that, Robin, you talked about this, the BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Marty talked about neurogenesis, where you can help build new brain cells. Well, BDNF is the protein that helps with that. And the microbiome, the beneficial bacteria that live inside us, help with the production of this protein. So you can imagine how important your microbiome is. Of course, it helps us regulate our moods. And I have to tell you a funny story with an experiment that was done. I believe it was either 2012 or 2013. They were studying mice. In the lab, it's easy to create sterile mice. They feed them lots of antibiotics and they kill off all the bacteria and all the microbiome. And then they inject it with different species to see how the mice are going to act out. Well, this one particular time they did these experiments, they injected a protozoan called Toxoplasma gondii, and the mice lost its fear of cats. So that was really interesting how they could manipulate the personality of these mice with different species of the microbiome. With anxiety and depression, one of the species of microbiome of bacteria that's being studied is Lactobacillus rhamnosus. And they are studying to see how it affects depression. So this is again very important because so far, we've only relied on medications to treat any kind of psychiatric conditions. So to have them study vitamins and microbiome for therapeutic interventions, I think that's cutting edge medicine. Also for autism, dementia, schizophrenia, so any of these brain-related disorders. For Parkinson's disease, there is research going on in Caltech right now, where they've discovered a species of bacteria that actually can upregulate or flare the motor, the lack of motor coordination in Parkinson's, and they're working to actually interrupt that process. So it's all cutting edge research coming out of different universities, but it's all based on these little creatures that live inside you and me. And we're going to learn, I'm going to show you some things that we can do to take care of them so they can take care of us. A very, very important thing here with the microbiome, this is a term you may have read or heard. It's called dysbiosis. So what does that mean? While we're living and going about our lives, we may not know, unknown to us, some parasites might get inside our gut. Sometimes we have symptoms and sometimes we don't. Dysbiosis is when the ratio of the helpful beneficial bacteria is disrupted. So the ratio of the helpful bacteria to the parasites. An 80-20 rule is generally accepted. So we want 80% of the healthy bacteria and 20% maybe of these parasitic species. When that is disrupted, when that ratio is disrupted, we call that dysbiosis. And dysbiosis can lead to inflammation inside your gut. Why is that important? That's important for your immune system and autoimmune diseases, but for today's subject is the brain. A leaky gut can actually lead to a leaky brain. It's like when one door opens, another one opens. Because of this connection, it's really, really important to maintain the lining of your gut, and a microbiome can help do that as well. So without wasting any time, I just want to show you a few things that we could be doing with our lifestyle and food to make sure that we take care of our microbiome, these little friends that outnumber us with their cells. What is SAD? I'm saying avoid SAD. SAD, the standard American diet, which is very high in sugar and salt and processed chemicals and the wrong types of fats. Robin talked about the healthy fats, but the trans fats and the fried foods, they're not very helpful. Not just because of heart disease or other things, but also because they can successfully wipe out some of our friendly bacteria. And we want them. We want those numbers to be good so that we're healthy. Sugar is not only inflammatory, not only does it upregulate your immune system, it can also kill the good bacteria, and it can feed things like yeast. If you are walking around with a lot of brain fog and confusion, sometimes it could be parasites or yeast in our gut. And sugar feeds that. And remember that 80-20, we don't want dysbiosis. We don't want to feed the wrong guys. We want to feed the right ones. Allergens. If you know that you are intolerant or allergic to certain foods, and if we keep consuming them, that can actually wear out the lining of your gut. And then when that happens, things start creeping into your bloodstream that are not supposed to creep into it, like toxins from those bacteria, and also undigested food. And your immune system does not recognize that, and it can launch an attack. So we just want to make sure that we're eating as close to nature as possible. And also be mindful when we are taking rounds of antibiotics, and sometimes we need to take medication, but just to do it mindfully. And what I mean by that is if you have to be on antibiotics or acid blockers or things like ibuprofen, Advil, those NSAIDs, and just be mindful, just make sure you have B12 either as supplements or in your diet, or even fermented foods and probiotic foods or supplements, just to kind of make up for losing some of those healthy species. Another very key thing that we forget to do, I have been so awful at this, with being busy, I would stand at the kitchen counter and gobble my food. I've stopped doing that since I started preaching about it. Chew your food, chew your food, chew your food. Your brain will thank you. Because when we don't chew our food properly, there's a cascade of digestive, I want to call it mis-events, like events that are not supposed to happen, and that also wear out the lining of your gut. And once that integrity is gone, think inflammation, think that the brain is on fire. When your belly's on fire, your brain is on fire. So chew your food. And chewing your food also helps you to not feed the parasites and the species that we don't want. So definitely chew your food. You want to make sure we're getting a good night's sleep. Marty's going to talk about stress, so I'm not going to go there. And fermented foods. I know a lot of people cannot do dairy, but you can try to find, things like sauerkraut, fermented vegetables. If you can do dairy, kefir and yogurt have some of the lactobacillus and the bifidobacterium. There are two of the species that are very beneficial, and they're being studied right now for brain health. So, and just remember, there is no magic bullet. If there was, scientists would have figured it out by now. It's very complex. They have isolated different species of this microbiome that help with different things, but they have yet to dial into the dosage. So if you're looking for a supplement, I know Robin can guide you. Just do the best you can with the broad spectrum of a variety of species. The two most important ones would be the lactobacillus and the bifidobacterium. So I hope that I've been able to convince you that, your brain is your boss, but then its boss is your gut. And, even if you want to take it one step further, the microbiome is running the show. So with that, I just wanted to let you guys know what I do. If you mention this webinar, I'm happy to give a discount. You can always call me or email me, and I'll have my contact information in the next slide. If you think that your gut can need some support or some help, or if you're just curious to know what your nutritional deficiencies may be, I'm happy to talk to you. And this is the email is just pooja.chilukuri@gmail.com. And thank you all for being here. And I will turn it over to Marty.
Okay, thank you, Pooja. I'm just going to get my slides up here. 1 second.
Okay. Just
Okay.
briefly mention, if you have questions, go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll address them at the end.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Marty Sladitsky, and I am a certified holistic health coach, and I'm also a HeartMath certified coach. My practice is called Master Your Stress, and as you can imagine from that name, I deal with stress, as Pooja alluded to. I help my clients uncover hidden stressors that are sabotaging their personal and their professional mental clarity, their life balance, and in general, their well-being. So tonight, I'd like to talk about the connection between our hearts and our brains, and how our emotions and emotional balance can improve cognitive function. So first of all, let's explore the heart, because the heart is more than just a blood pump. In 1983, it was actually reclassified as part of the hormonal system when researchers discovered that the heart produces a hormone called atrial peptide, which is nicknamed the balance hormone. And this hormone inhibits the release of stress hormones. Experiments that were conducted also suggest that atrial peptide can influence our motivation and our behavior. And more recently, they discovered that the heart produces oxytocin, another hormone, and this is nicknamed the love hormone. You may have heard of this. But this hormone has a very strong influence on our emotional and social behaviors. Researchers also discovered that the heart has its own independent nervous system, and it's known as the heart brain. So where Pooja was talking about the gut brain, the heart also has a brain, and it contains 40,000 neurons. These neurons have short and long-term memory, just like the neurons in our brain. The heart neurons also have plasticity and can change and rewire like brain neurons. So because of this elaborate circuitry, the brain is able to act independently of the head brain, or the heart brain, I'm sorry, is able to act independently of the head brain. It can learn, remember, and even feel and sense. So there is a connection between the heart and the brain. The heart and the brain continually exchange critical information that influences how the body and how the brain function. The heart actually sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And in fact, 90 to 95% of the nerves connecting the heart and brain are etheric, which means rising or going to. And these neural fibers carry messages up from the heart to the brain. And the heart messages impact many of our cognitive functions, things like our perception, decision-making, problem-solving, and creativity. So what do our emotions have to do with all of this? We experience so many emotions throughout our lives, day to day, hour to hour, and even moment to moment. But do we realize the impact that our emotions have on our ability to think clearly, to focus, and to make decisions? Well, I'd like to share 4 steps with you to connect the dots on the role that our emotions play in our cognitive health, and then give you something that we can do to enhance that relationship. So step 1 is, first of all, to become aware. We all have feelings, we all have emotions, and we probably don't even pay attention to them. But we can, if we become aware, we can recognize them. And I'm sure we all have feelings right now. If you think about it, are you feeling curious? Maybe calm? Maybe you're peaceful. Maybe you're worried. I hope you're not bored, but you may be. So just become aware of your feelings. This is the first step. And then the second step is to analyze your emotions. Pay attention to them. How do they make you feel mentally and physically? How do they affect you? If you're feeling angry or frustrated, you may feel a tightness in your body and you're not able to think clearly. On the other hand, if you're feeling peaceful or you're feeling gratitude, you may feel composed and focused. So when you become aware of them and you figure out what they are, then analyze them. And step 3 is to categorize the emotions. Now, generally, there are 2 categories. One is positive and one is negative or stressful. Positive emotions improve the way our brains and nervous systems process information. They tend to lengthen our lifespan, and they improve our mental and physical health. Emotions that make us feel good, things like joy, appreciation, love, these are positive emotions that produce more DHEA, which is a vitality hormone, and they reduce the production of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Stressful emotions, on the other hand, things like worry, impatience, annoyance, these actually produce more cortisol. And high cortisol levels can kill brain cells in the hippocampus, which is the area of our brain that affects our learning and memory. If we have ongoing negative emotions that are produced by chronic stress, this can have a major impact on our immediate and long-term cognitive functions. And the fourth step is to self-regulate, to regulate your emotions. So let's talk about what that means. How can we achieve emotional self-regulation? Well, we can learn heart-based self-regulation skills, and I'll give you the opportunity to experience one in a minute. But first, I'd like to talk about that a little bit more, because these heart-based skills can help create and maintain a state of composure when you find yourself in a tornado of turmoil. And the state of composure is also known as coherence. And when you're in a state of coherence, your mind, your emotions, and your body are all in sync and everything is in balance. And your whole being, it functions efficiently and it's in harmony. So positive emotions are essential to be able to create and sustain this state of coherence. So right now, I invite you to experience this for yourself. And I'd like to guide you through a heart math technique called quick coherence. And as the name implies, it is a technique to quickly get you into that state of coherence. So I invite you to sit relaxed and close your eyes and start to focus on your heart. Place your attention on your heart. And if it helps, you can place your hand on your heart. And breathe a little slower and a little deeper than your usual breath. Don't force it, but just keep at a comfortable pace. And now imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. And now activate a positive feeling. It could be a feeling of love or care or gratitude, or just remembering something that makes you feel good or makes you feel happy. But experience that feeling, actually immerse yourself in it. And when you feel ready, you can slowly open your eyes and bring your attention back to the webinar. So I hope this brief experience has left you with the feeling of being a little more focused, maybe a little more composed, and having some mental clarity. These are the resources and references that I've used for this presentation. So if you'd like to take a screenshot and dig a little deeper into this resource material, go right ahead. Yeah, I think you'll find it fascinating. And if you'd like to connect with me and learn a little bit more about heart math, I'm offering a special on my heart math starter session. It's 45-minute virtual introduction to heart math. And there is a link here or a QR code that will bring you to a page where you could register for this and learn some of the HeartMath technology and techniques that can enhance your heart-brain connection. So thank you for your attention. And I am going to turn this over to Wendy.
Great, thank you. And I will share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. Is it share? There we go. All right. I did not understand the importance of brain health until my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's and eventually also with dementia. At the beginning, I really didn't understand the effects that Parkinson's was going to have on her life and on our family's lives. I knew at the time that it caused tremors, but I really had no idea that it caused reduced cognitive functioning. So she was diagnosed in 2000 and she passed in 2020. So she lived with a steadily decreasing memory for about 20 years. These diseases, as everybody knows, were just awful in their relentlessness as they, slowly stripped away from her ability to walk, to communicate, to remember. So she slowly lost everything in her life. First, the little things, like she no longer had the fine motor skills to do things like write a check. Then she started having trouble talking and couldn't come up with words. Then the ability to walk. Her brain couldn't connect with her feet, and so she wasn't able to walk properly. And then next, it began taking away her relationships as she started to actually forget who her friends and family were. Then she started hallucinating, and so she had less and less moments of lucidity as she gradually lost her ability to perform her activities of daily living. So I know it was really awful for her losing her life in increments like that and knowing it was happening, because she shared with me when she still could that it really bothered her and she felt like she was being pitied. But it was also awful for those of us around her who loved her to watch her gradually shrinking in her mind and body with nothing we could do about it. So to see her become a shell of her former self and to lose her before she was actually gone. But having someone with this kind of issues really did emphasize the importance of family and of the quality of the time we spend with our loved ones. So I'm coming at this not so much from the scientific point of view, but from a very personal one. As a photographer, I'm used to taking my camera everywhere. But one thing I discovered with my mom's situation was that the camera is a particularly effective tool for those with impaired brain function. To me, photography and photos can help in 3 ways: keeping the brain active, creating new moments for that person, and then helping that person retain their dignity. There is an abundance of research that shows that certain types of activities can be beneficial for the brain's health, and reviewing photos is very effective because it can trigger recall far more effectively than words can. I bought my mom a picture book through the Alzheimer's store, and it had a picture on each page, like the cookie jar picture, and it had suggested activities that you could do with them and also some suggested questions to ask them. So like, what's your favorite kind of cookie? Did you ever bake cookies with your children? Where did you keep your cookies? That kind of thing. And through this, I really learned one technique that helped with her memory. And that was, if I would ask her these questions, I had to really ask the open-ended questions and then wait a long time, because she would get frustrated if I tried to push her through this process too quickly. She would sometimes, after I'd ask a question, I would think, oh, she must have fallen asleep. But then she'd finally come up with an answer. And that was very helpful to her, because if I could get that process started, it really helped trigger a lot of things for her. Another way that the brain can be kept active is depending on their abilities. Photographs could become a hobby for them, labeling photos, putting them into albums. My mom one time had asked me to help her organize her photos into albums. Well, I had no idea what was in store for me because she was pulling photos from everywhere. And we spent a whole week sorting them and reminiscing about them. So this project became a great bonding experience for us, and it was also a good stimulation for her mind. During the project, I had also asked her a lot of questions about the people and places in the photos, and I had thankfully taken the time to label all the photos. I didn't realize it then, but in hindsight, it was really good timing because within just a few short years after that activity, she didn't remember any of those people or places that we had carefully labeled. So it really became a very useful tool for her in jogging her memory. It's estimated that up to half of people over 85 may have dementia. And according to Alzheimer's Association, over 40% of people with Alzheimer's also suffer extreme depression. So photos can be a very effective tool because when looking at a photo, that person, it can trigger some sort of memory and help them retain focus. And it stimulates the mind to help the neurons to maintain their health. But it's not just the existing photos that can help them. It can be a wonderful tool for creating new moments with your loved ones. Often as a caregiver or family member, there might be photos of, some branches of the family and no photos of some of the other people. And if you're the one that typically takes the photos, often there might not be any photos of you in a particular time period. And while you may not think that's important to have pictures of yourself, the other family members around you are going to be grateful that they have the photos of you across the years. In my mom's case, as her illness became more and more progressed, she became more isolated because of her diminished ability to communicate. But whenever we did photo shoots, we were able to transcend that spoken word and just be. And so we would use different scenarios and just let her play. Like one time we got out a bunch of hats and scarves and wigs, and we just had fun with them. And that morning, she hadn't really been lucid at all. But as soon as we started this project, she started getting very engaged. And she said, "Oh, I have a really good idea." And so she said, "If we put the scarves down our shirts, we can pretend we have big chests." And we started laughing so hard because that was so my mom. And we knew she was actually there with us in that moment. At that time, she was lucid. And from that, she remained lucid the rest of that day. She was so engaged in this process. The other interesting thing is she would also ask me to do her hair and makeup whenever we would do a photo shoot. So I knew it was not only that she was engaged in this process, but that she wanted some control over how she was presenting herself. These moments now are, I feel, very special, and they're, like treasures for me because I feel like while she was becoming trapped in this prison that was her mind, I hope I helped give her a glimmer of happiness with some of these shoots that we did. And because when people suffer some sort of brain disorder, they're often fully capable of understanding others, even when they're unable to communicate effectively. So sometimes they get dismissed or treated as irrelevant, they get talked down to. And often this is even from well-meaning family or caregivers who just don't understand the nature of their disabilities. Their bodies are often ravaged by age and they're losing themselves, their hearing, their eyesight, their muscle tone, and now their minds. And so physically and mentally, they just don't feel like themselves. My mom had also taken on the features of her illness and what they call the flat affect, and which is an absence of expression. So when my sister saw some of the photos that we did, she said, this is the first time in a long time Mom hasn't looked disabled. And so she said, you really gave her dignity back. And that really resonated with me. So when I do photo shoots with other people who have memory issues, my goal is to get them as engaged as they're capable of being and shoot from angles that de-emphasize things like wheelchairs or blank expressions. So a photo shoot can really be a win-win, strengthening your relationship with that person while it helps their short-term memory. And of course, having the photo memories of them as well. Now, often caregivers and family members are overwhelmed, physically and mentally. So the last thing they're thinking about is a photo shoot. But whether there are memory issues or not, you never know when it's going to be too late. So that's why I'm so passionate about helping families keep those memories. And that's why I have a special offer for you today. A 1-hour photo shoot is normally $180, but because you're here today, I'm offering it for only $119. And to get this, you can call me, email me, or use the link that I'm going to put in the chat and schedule your appointment online. And the shoot can be with any number of people and any location that you want. And then you'll receive your gallery full of electronic images within about a week after the shoot. And if you need to verify a date first, you can buy it as a gift certificate and figure out a date later. I try to make it super easy. But here's what I know about things like this. You might be thinking, yes, I need to get the family together for photos. It's been forever. But then you leave this webinar and real life takes over and you don't get to it. And a week goes by, then a month, and then pretty soon a year has gone by. But I know that this moment in time will never come again. So if you don't take the time, the kids will grow up, the family members move or are gone, and we don't have any photos at all of this particular time. And I hear you say, but I don't know my family's schedule, but I have family that lives far away, but I don't have extra money. But I ask you, don't let the buts get in the way. So maybe it takes a little extra coordination, or you have to pool your resources with some of the family members, but your family is so precious and none of us knows how much time we have together. And I'm so grateful for all those photos that I have of my mom. I feel like they're like gifts to me now. And I want you to have the gift of your family memories too. And there we go, back to Robin.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. I just think that's, that just brought it back to such a personal message. Yeah. So thank you all. I think